Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Morning, Peter.
Good morning, Bill. It's raining where I am. How are you there?
Oh, I haven't been outside yet, but it doesn't look like a very nice day.
Oh, really?
Good morning, Johnny Cashflow. How are you this morning? He says, "What's up, real estate freaks?" All right, cool. So let's get started. We're on episode number 297. And the name of today's episode is 8 Gargantuan Deal Killers Most Rookies Make on Creative Deal Conversations. So here we go. If you would like, this is the description. If you would like to master the most valuable and profitable skills in creative real estate, you're in the right place today. In this one podcast, we are going to drastically improve your earning power so you can make all the money you like with less stress and strain while talking to real estate sellers, especially in today's economic market. These 8 major factors hardly anybody talk about, mostly because so few understand them, plus they are not sexy seminar topics. Once we get done today, you'll know the legitimate reasons that you were blind to all along and how they were working against you without you even knowing it. So if you are tired of boxing these shadows, getting exhausted with very little or no results, you are not only going to want to intensely listen, but also might catch yourself taking notes. Unfortunately, most will only listen, Peter, and won't do much with it, while those few will use this information to become millionaires. It took me over 30 plus years to learn what you are about to hear in the next 60 minutes. Hello.
Hello.
Guess my heart's on my sleeve this morning, huh?
Let's see what this is going to be. Well, 30 years in the making, ladies and gentlemen.
So first thing is you should realize in the description of wherever you're watching us or hearing us, podcast platform, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, there's a link in there for you. I will tell you more about it once we get through the podcast because it is apropos to this podcast. I change the link every podcast, so you should always go in there and check it. It's not the same link. And sometimes I put some goodies in there. A couple podcasts ago, I put $500 or $800 worth of free stuff in there.
What a crazy guy.
Sometimes I am. Also, if you could subscribe to our channel, wherever you're watching us, just subscribe and give us a review. It would be phenomenal. That's our report card. It costs us about 5 or 6 hours a week to make this podcast between the research and the writing and the recording and the editing and all this stuff. Although there's not much editing, there's just somebody puts the intro and outro on it, but all the work. It's about 5 or 6 hours a week. So our pay for that 5 or 6 hours a week, which is very, very low pay for you, but for us it's huge, is to just give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. And if you have questions, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/support, and I answer all those support tickets every day. So we're here to help you make deals. Okay. Also, every Thursday morning, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I know that's not a good time for a lot of people. We actually record this podcast for the week following. We syndicate it on Monday. So Mondays are when the podcasts come out, but we record them on Thursdays, and you can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Okay, so just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and you can answer any and all questions or ask any and all questions there during the podcast as long as it's related to the podcast. If it's not, you'll have to use a support ticket. Oh my goodness, get rid of all that stuff. All right, Pete. I would like to claim the skill of talking to motivated sellers equals your current financial scene and your overall financial wealth.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Fortunately or unfortunately, I would agree with that.
Podcast over.
Wait a minute. Bill, tell us what to say. Tell us what to listen for. Tell us what to do and not to do.
So your skill of talking to motivated sellers equals your current financial scene and your overall financial wealth. In creative real estate, your only security, the only security you have. Now I'm talking about up markets, I'm talking about down markets, I'm talking about good sellers, bad sellers, good buyers, bad buyers, good partners, bad partners, good financial guys, bad financial guys, contractors, all of the whole thing.
You mean all the blaming?
All the crap. Right? In creative real estate, your only security is the ability to produce helpful, valuable, and result-based conversations with a seller looking for the best deal on his or her property.
Can you say that again? Because that was like, maybe that's the podcast right there. Say that again, though.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was meaningful.
So I felt it when I wrote it. In creative real estate, your only security is the ability to produce helpful, valuable, and result-based conversations with a seller looking for the best deal on his or her property sale.
Yeah, I think you just said it.
That's your job description.
Yeah.
If you want to build a serious vault of cash, that's how you do it. Right?
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's exactly how you do it. Just get some light on me. No? Okay. So
I see you. I see you.
Half of me's dark, half of me's light. So, in other words, it's how you talk and grow rich. You know, upon on think and grow rich.
Yeah, right.
How you talk and grow rich, right?
Hey, Bill, want to hear funny? There was an episode of like Hawaii Five-0, like a rerun, and there's some guy that's in jail, getting out, and wants to turn his life around. So the detective who knows him, trying to help him out, walks in before he's let out of jail and plops down a book in front of him on a table. Think and Grow Rich.
There you go.
You go. And he winds up in the later episodes doing very well. Yes.
So I'm not sure what JR is asking here. He said, "Sorry, a bit off topic, but would the same business logistics and policies apply to acquiring a house that will be later transferred into a dispensary, or to the laws differ with this intention?" Absolutely not. JR, so we were in a conference last week, Peter and I, and there were 70 or 75 investors from all over the country there. And what I'm talking about today, you'll do it differently than I'll do it, because like Texas doesn't do lease options and we do, but they do owner financing. What we're talking about today is the things we're going to talk about are the things that you'll speak to your seller about. So it's very colloquial. So it's local to you, but once you learn it and once you know how to do it, the things that we're going to talk about today work all over the country. And honestly, I'm telling you, I've done hundreds of deals myself, hundreds with my coaching clients. I think I've trained hundreds of people so far. I'm not sure. I've never counted.
Oh hell, way more than that, one way or the other.
And it's come down to every single time what you say to the seller. The successful coaching clients are the ones that get on the phone and talk to sellers and make deals. End of story. It's not software. It's not their intelligence. It's not their math. It's not their deal structuring skills. It's not the paperwork. It's not any of that. It's just talking to the sellers. Agree, Pete?
Yes. And again, that's the good news and the bad news. Because
Okay.
there's nothing to write on a piece of paper if you can't talk to the guy. There's no script to use if he won't listen to you,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that stuff.
All right, so by avoiding these 8 gargantuan deal killers most rookies make on creative deal conversations, you'll soon assign yourself the task of the highest paid job in America. Because it is the high. Ever hear the expression? Gotta get it. So most millionaires are millionaires because of real estate, or real estate makes the most millionaires.
Yeah.
So this is higher paid than doctors and lawyers, and this is a better job than stock market and hedge fund guys. All of that. The amount of advantages. Well, just a quick overview. So you put $5,000 in the stock market, right?
Yep.
And you get dividends. So that's great. Maybe you make a 200% profit. I don't know.
Yeah, not usually.
But here's the point: as soon as you take that $5,000 out of the stock market, it stops working for you.
Yeah.
Take that same $5,000, buy a piece of real estate. First thing that happens, probably in most cases, that $5,000 turns into $100,000 worth of assets.
Exactly.
It's $100,000 asset because you put $5,000 down and bought a $100,000 property.
Yep.
Right. So you got a 5,000. You took 5,000, turned it into a $100,000 asset. And
That's leveraging, huh?
Yeah. By the way, what happens if you take that $5,000 out? Can you still take the $5,000 out and still own the real estate? You can refinance and do it. Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start talking about all the tax benefits, because in the stock market you don't have depreciation. You don't have all the tax write-offs you have with the real estate. So many of our listeners, and this has been the drum I've been beating lately, and I really need to move on because this is what we have so much to do today. I've been beating the drum lately, and especially if you go back and listen, I think episode number 291, where the amount of money that you can make in real estate, what we talk about on this podcast for almost 300 podcasts is the money now and a money monthly, money later, is the minuscule. It's the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. It's so minuscule when you see what the back end profits are, the tax rent benefits, and all the things you get behind the scenes that are incredible. It dwarfs the cash flow up front. But because most of our listeners want that cash flow and don't care about taxes, which if they did care about taxes, then it would make a difference. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you don't even see that. You don't have to do anything about that stuff.
Right.
That happens actually completely automatically.
If you do it right.
If you set it up correctly, it just does it by itself. You go to your accountant and it's done.
All right. So I want to make a promise today, Peter, that I'm not going to step into the dogma pool, which means that I'm not going to be authoritative and very teacher-like you have to do it this way. I'm just going to tell you what I found over the last 30 plus years, and it has made me and you a lot of money. So they're simple. Some people may think, oh, they already do that, but they haven't bought a house yet. So if you're not buying multiple houses or if you haven't done at least 10 or 20 houses in the last couple of years, then you probably aren't doing one of these, or are doing one of these and don't know it. Okay. And I'm not talking about 10 or 20 houses wholesale. I'm talking about creative real estate deals. I'm talking subject to deals. I'm talking, lease options, owner financing. I'm talking about land contract deals, that kind of stuff when you're buying. Okay, creative real estate. But at the same time, I want you to brace yourself, because this is a very, 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 very expensive podcast. This is probably the most expensive podcast that I've ever done. And I don't mean the cost for you to listen, but instead the cost of you not actually implementing it. Not actually implementing what it took me 30 plus years to learn and reward from, and I'm still learning from it.
Yeah.
So this is the most expensive podcast I think you'll ever listen to on the airwaves. And if you think there's one that's better than this, send me a support ticket. I would love to hear it.
Mhm.
But I'm telling you, this is the most expensive, the most valuable podcast that you'll listen to. Truth is, most will be unreasonable about it. Judging whether or not these lessons are expensive until they let their seller vote on what was discussed by doing the deal or not.
Mhm.
So in other words, you don't have the room to vote whether or not this podcast is valuable or expensive or not until you sit in front of a seller and you use some of these tactics or don't use some of these tactics, and whether or not you get a deal or not. You will not be able to have a legitimate vote in this game or on this podcast on how wealthy it is or how much how much it's worth to you until you sit in front of a seller and do or don't do some of these things. And
Yeah.
watch them in front of you. Watch them transform in front of you. Watch their facial expressions and their body motions and all the things, their responses and their questions and all of that just actually change in front of you. Right? How many times have you seen that, Peter?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I probably should pay more attention because people don't always tell you exactly what's happening and what they're
Exactly.
really thinking. You got to really pay attention. And except me, I always tell people what I'm really thinking, what I'm really doing.
Right.
But like you said before, like sellers always lie. How's the house? Oh, it's in great shape, or whatever they do.
Yeah.
They don't mean to do it, but they're trying to protect their self-interest, so they'll just do it. It's hard not to.
So the expense in this and the expense that I'm trying to talk about that I'm belaboring at this moment is, think of this. If you do some of these things and you don't know it, if you're doing some of these things and don't know it, if you're doing some of these things and don't know it, if you are doing some of these things and don't know it, how much money are you really losing that you're not even aware of?
Mm-hmm.
How many deals are you getting? How much have you convinced yourself that it's something else other than you? Is it the economy? Is it the marketing? Is it the words? Is it the sellers? Is it the list? How many things have you convinced yourself it is other than you? Right? You don't even know it. Right? You won't even know you lost deals if you can't even start the conversation, the first sentence. If you're texting the first sentence. I have a coaching client right now that's doing that. He's texting incorrectly, and I've been trying to correct him for 3 weeks, and he doesn't know it.
Oh man.
He doesn't know. He sends paragraphs, and he tries to do the closing call on text,
Yeah.
and it's just the wrong gradient.
Yeah. I've been really watching that, thinking to myself, and I hope this isn't one of the things you're going to cover in a minute because I don't know, folks, until he tells me too. But I've been trying to, when talking to somebody on the phone or in text, just say or ask the exact next question. Like, what's the very next thing the person might be thinking or want to know? Not 10 steps ahead, not what I want to do, not what I want to end up with, but just what's the next step he might take? Because maybe he'll answer that. I even seen some of the texts you sent, like, "Are you not interested in selling me your house?" And they answer that one because that's
Right.
what they're thinking.
Right.
No, I'm not. And then you can at least talk to them.
Yeah.
And something crazy like that. But just what's the next thing I should say? That's what I'm trying to do for one thing. If I'm listening at all.
So that's good, Peter. So there's a rule. This is my number one rule in Bill's kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
This is my number one rule that I live by. Do not listen to anything I'm telling you. Don't believe me. Be 1000% skeptical and expect me to be wrong. And just go test it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If it works the way I said it did, then you can believe me. But don't make an evaluation based on what you think based on your bad experiences. If you have somebody that's never bought a house and they're trying to make a decision on what sentence to use, and this happens to us in the coaching group all the time, because what happens is we'll do role playing.
Yeah.
And they'll give me the most idiotic objections that in 30 years and thousands of sellers I've never even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
No sellers ever ask me those questions, but these
Mm-hmm.
people do. These coaching clients do, because they think that's what a seller's going to say. So until you have actually sat in front of somebody and tested these things out, you don't have the right to evaluate whether I'm right or I'm wrong. You don't get a vote in the game.
Bill, didn't that happen last week, all week? And the room was 70 people, which I don't know, half were really professional, seasoned guys, and the other half were brand new kind of wannabes or in the front end of things. And they'd ask questions like, and the professionals on stage will look at each other and go like, why are you asking that? That's got nothing to do with that. That's what game? Where are you from? It's just not real. So they're trying to imagine what may or may not happen. And it's just imagination conjured up in their own little mind. So yeah,
All right,
sellers
so,
really know what's going on. Listen to them. Don't use your imagination. Yeah, it's enough trouble trying to do their imagination. Don't do yours.
exactly. All right, so let's get down to business. Number one mistake.
Yeah.
97% of almost every investor or anybody working on creative deals make is talking too much. Now, here's the reason why. Talking too much. They're not getting the 4 big questions answered.
Yep.
They're not getting the 4 questions answered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it took me years to figure this out. Years and years. And I trained acquisition managers not knowing this.
Oh, boy.
There's only 4 things you need to know to structure a creative real estate deal. Only 4. In fact, any deal. I don't care what deal it is. Even cash deals. Right? Number 1, what's the price? Number 2, what's the monthly payment? Number 3, what's the duration or time of the cycle? And number 4, if they want a deposit amount, how much? Or if they don't, how much? Now, you might say, how would that apply in cash? But think about this. If you're going to go do a REO property, real estate owned property, and do a rehab, you're going to have to go figure out a private money lender, right?
Sure.
So how much are the payments?
It's right. There's payments in there. Even if you don't pay them every month, there's payments accruing. They're building up on you.
And then number 3, how long is the duration?
Yeah.
How long do you have the money for? And number 4, what do you need for a deposit?
Yeah.
Either to the seller or to your private lender.
That's right.
So, I mean, this applies to everything. Even if you're paying cash for the property, you still have to wonder about your monthly payments. We call that holding cost. How much are the taxes? How much are the insurance? How much are the utilities? You still need to know that number.
Yep.
So every single deal needs these 4 components. Number 1, price. Number 2, monthly payment. Number 3, duration of the loan or duration of the time you expect to have it or the money you need or whatever you want to, the expense, right?
Yeah.
And what is the deposit amount if it's brought up?
Yeah.
So the 4 points are your only mission when talking to all sellers. So you could go off and you could find all these guys, listen to Pace Morby talk. I've been listening to him talk. There's a guy named RJ, RJ Billards or Billard or something like that. He's on YouTube, talks all the time, right? Listen to Ron LeGrand talk. Listen to Lynette and Brian Wolf talk. They have a whole system on how to talk to people, right? Which we may be getting involved with them, and they may be helping some of our students. We'll see what happens. But my point is, listen to any one of these guys. Listen to me talk. And at the end of the day, you're going to realize they may not be as clear and as obvious as I am with it right now, but they have to get the price, they have to get the monthly payments, they have to get the duration or the terms, right? And they have to talk about a deposit or not talk about a deposit.
Yep.
Those 4 components have to be there to make a deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is major because you guys are going to buy scripts and practice, and you're going to look for all these shiny objects and all these things. And if you just know this core concept, all the scripts will become easy. You'll know whether it's a good script or not. You don't need a script if you just stay focused on those 4 things.
Well, if we're focusing on that, I would venture to say the only reason you have a script is to put the seller in the frame of mind where he's willing to talk to you about those things, give you answers to those things, and give you the most favorable answers he can from your conversation.
I'm going to go over that in a minute, and I think you're going to be surprised because I have been bamboozled.
What?
But I've been bamboozled. You know what bamboozle means?
I do, but by whom would you be bamboozled?
By students and you.
I did not bamboozle you.
Yes, you have.
Oh, I didn't mean to. I am so sorry.
No, yeah, I got that.
So okay, I'm looking forward to this one.
So, what does bamboozled mean? So, in case somebody doesn't know.
Well, it means like it's tricked into something,
right.
Fooled in some way.
Exactly.
So snookered.
Yeah. So let's go back to number 1. So if you get, which is the 4 points I was just about, if you get off the phone before getting these 4 facts, you've accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
It was a waste of your time. You're not doing real estate. You're doing some other thing. In fact, just to be a Bill Hawthorne about it, because I have a reputation of this, and I'm going to put it in my own words, because I would do this in an email. To me, it was total mental masturbation. You were playing with yourself in your own mind. If you didn't get these 4 things, you wasted your time, you wasted your seller's time, you wasted everybody's time. Right? More to the point, you are talking too much if you don't. 4 points. You're talking too much, and more often than not, and this is I'm going to skim over this because I could do a whole podcast just on this, Peter.
Yeah.
If you're talking too much, more often than not, you're overrunning the seller and driving disinterest and lack of affinity in your potential deal. So shut up and get the 4 basic facts.
Here's a question we should all ask ourselves. Would a seller on the phone rather talk or listen?
Well, the book called The Asking, I forgot the guy that wrote it, that I read a bunch of years ago, he actually did a survey on this. Asking was like for people people that would raise funds for church donations.
Yeah.
And the saying is that you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because you listen twice as much as you talk. But more to the point, this guy did a study on interviews. And at the end, I mean, I'm not going to spend the time now because we're kind of behind. But at the end of the day, what they found was because they would like do an interview and then that afternoon ask them what was said, and then the next day, and then in 3 days, and then in a week, and then in 2 weeks, and then in a month, and then 5 weeks later. They would ask them, what do you remember about the interview? The ones that remembered the interview precisely 6 weeks later were the people that did most of the talking.
I believe it.
It's called The Asking. It's not a religious book, but it was about raising funds for religion. He raised millions of dollars for religion. Number 2. So number 1, remember what number 1 is?
Talking too much.
That's right. And the reason why you're talking too much is because you don't know what you're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah.
So number 2, you get off the script and get lost.
Yeah. That's a good one.
So scripts are predetermined, organized words.
Mm-hmm.
Designed for best results when answering sellers' questions.
When answering sellers' questions,
Right.
because see, scripts are questions that we ask them for answers. So you just said it the opposite way. So please explain.
So the part where I got bamboozled is I'm trying to make all these scripts for people to like initiate the conversation.
Yeah, and
Well,
ask them lots of questions.
I'm drawing a line in the dirt right now, and I'm saying that that's bullshit. If you know that you got to get to 4 points: price, payment, duration, and down payment if they talk about it. You don't need to be a brain surgeon to say, "Hey, Peter, what are you asking for your house?
Yeah.
Well, is that the best you can do?"
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how much is your monthly payment? Oh, it's 1,600. Okay, good. That's how much we're going to pay.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, by the way, how long is your loan? Oh, it's 27 years. Okay, that's how long we're going to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the simple version, right? Now
Sure.
here's the point.
And I think Bill is frozen. And I would tell you the point if I knew what the point was. So let's wait for Bill to come back. Bill?
Okay, I'm back.
Where'd you go?
I have no idea. I thought it was you, but I had for some reason that's the second time I had to reboot. I don't know what's going on this morning.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, my question to you was this: if you if you stick to those 4 questions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's going to be a million ways you can answer those 4 questions, right?
I guess, yeah. Different
So,
numbers.
so here's my point. The scripts are not to initiate those 4 things. If we keep it simple and just get those 4 pieces of data, the scripts are to handle the objections, the stalls, the resistance, the concerns. So here's what happens is in any topic, there's only between 12 and I think it's 12 and 15 or 12 and 17 objections.
Mm.
Like if I was selling peanuts on the street corners of New York, Manhattan, there's only 12 or 15 objection handlings.
Yeah.
So once you learn those 12 or 15 responses or rebuttals to turn the person's head around, and it's not persuasion, it's just to get them to think a different way, that's the part that counts.
Mm.
That's what the practice is for. The practice is not to initiate the script. The practice is to handle the rebuttals or handle the concerns or handle the objections. That's where you guys get off script and get lost.
That makes sense.
So the scripts are for the questions you ask. They're not there to give you the questions asked, but to respond to the questions that are asked.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why you're getting lost is because you haven't talked to enough people to know what the rebuttals are. So what I ask my coaching clients to do is when they're on the phones, when they feel like somebody says something they don't know what to say, write it down.
Yeah.
And you should make your own playbook that way. Right? Plus, you have to realize that the number of times over your scripts build certainty. We've talked about this before. A number of times over something builds certainty, right? And confidence. So if you have low or very little confidence, that means that you just don't believe in your scripts. You have some concern, like you're saying to somebody, why don't you do a subject to deal, put the deed in my name and take the, I'll keep the loan in your name and I'll get the house deeded to me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't believe that. So you'll never do it because you yourself wouldn't do that. So how are you going to ask somebody else to do it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I cannot ask somebody to do something I'm at least willing to do. So I have to make sure I'm willing to do things. But just because I am or I am not doesn't mean they are or are not, right? What's that got to do with me? It's not me, it's them.
Okay, this is nuts. So I changed computers. Hopefully that will fix it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
So when
about
that happens, if I speak, would people hear me?
Yeah, I
Or,
think so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I was gonna please keep talking, but I wasn't sure if I'd be talking to myself if it's lost because you're running the stream there.
All right. So let's move on because we just killed a bunch of time. So does that make sense in the scripts?
Well, yeah, I got the picture of a seller on the phone and or me on the phone being on the other end and just having questions about some guy on the phone trying to buy my house. I'd have lots of questions.
Right.
So, yeah, we would want to know what his questions are to answer them. So
what you'll realize, and again, I could do multiple podcasts on this, but the point is that you're going to hear the same questions, different versions of it, but the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. So you might as well just start writing them down and practicing how you're going to handle them.
Right. But what I'm really noticing here, I'm sorry to take another minute, but I'm noticing is we spend a lot of time asking people questions so we get our answers. It doesn't matter. We're not the ones selling the house. We have to answer their questions, and we don't even know they have questions. They might not know what their questions are, but they're uncomfortable on the phone. They're unsure, and we have to just find out what their questions are and answer them somehow. But just gave me a different viewpoint when you're saying that.
Yep.
Just be more respectful. Like, sir, would you like a hamburger? And he's like, I don't know.
Well, then you're going to love number 3.
Okay, go for number 3.
You don't realize the seller is wanting to take you off your script. Most people don't realize that the seller is trying to take you off your script. Not every one of them, but most of them.
Are they actually trying to on purpose?
Yeah. The seller is just like a child. They're testing you. They're checking to see if you're real or fake, maybe a scam. They're testing you. They're checking to make sure that you know what you're talking about.
Wow.
Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we're going through this right now. I'm going through this and behind the scenes in my own mind, much heavier than all the rest of your minds.
Yeah.
Because I have this company with my partner, Sean, and he has all VAs and everything, virtual assistants and all that stuff. It's all automated, click, push, bing, bang, robots, all this stuff, right?
Yeah, volume business, lots of quantity. Find a prospect.
And then we have another business with you and with me and you that's just you and your wife.
Yeah.
And you don't do all that, you just talk. And we're getting more results from your business than his.
It's scary.
And so nowadays, especially with the texting, because my feelings were really hurt.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like, why are these people telling me to go F myself on a text? Why are they doing? They don't even know me. What is society that degraded? And then I realized, no, it's because we're irritating the snot out of them because 9,000 people are texting them, and it's the automation that they're pissed off with. It's not me, because people are texting them, and it's not a normal human conversation.
Yeah.
Because the bot doesn't answer the question correctly or sincerely.
Yeah, they can feel it's an automatic.
Right. So, by the way, just to touch on it before we get to the next one. By the way, building rapport is talking about the house, not the kids and the weather.
In spite of what other people say, right?
Right. So you don't need to build rapport a lot. I mean, my rapport building is, okay, good. How many bathrooms is it? How many bedrooms is it? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, you're taking the point of view that what they're interested in is selling the house.
Right.
So talk about the house. The only time I'll do anything more is if they bring up something that's really like they're a musician, I'm a musician. I got a guy who's a barber, my father's a barber. They knew each other. That's it, because it's a real thing. You're not searching, you're not looking for something to talk about. If there really is something, then I live right on the corner from you, or the house is down the street from me. I know the house, I pass it all the time. It's a reality point, and that's it. That's enough. Get on.
Yeah.
Get on with it. Don't force it.
Plus, until we get the answers to the 4 basic questions, honestly, we don't care about the real estate. And this is another big thing. And I lumped them all together here under number 3, that you don't realize that the seller is wanting to take you off script.
Mm.
I mean, they want to know, are you local? Do you know about the grocery store down the street?
Mm-hmm.
They're testing you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And which, by the way, even if you're working around the country, you could still get around that stuff real easily.
Yeah.
Okay, so the default for any of these questions or any of these problems that we're talking about, how do you avoid them? The default is just go back to the 4 basic questions.
Hmm.
Always default back to the 4 big ones,
Mm.
right? So they could be like, complaining about the contractor that did their work. You could say, okay, so how much are your payments?
Yeah.
Or how much were you asking?
Yeah.
And just go back. Like suppose they give you a number. Well, I'm asking 180,000, and then they go off and they talk for 10 minutes about the contractor doing all this work.
Yeah.
You stop them by saying, so is all that included in the 180,000?
Hmm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Just bring him back to the topic.
The 4 big ones.
Yeah.
Now, number 4, teaching.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to give seminars, rent a hotel room, invite guests, and then do your spiel. The seller phone conversations or in the house, whether they're on the phone or in the house, is not the place to do a seminar. Besides, the more you teach, the more you talk, the more you dig big holes.
Yeah.
Whenever I've done this, it's 100% of the time. 100% of the time brings up more questions from the seller for me to handle.
That's right.
It makes more work for me.
Do you think people do it hoping that if they say everything they know, 2 or 3 things might stick to the guy?
So here's the biggest mistake
Yeah.
that any newbie makes. Number one, they're trying to handle the myth is that, and it's less now than it used to be this way, but not anymore.
Yeah.
You can have one phone conversation with the seller in 45 minutes and buy a house.
Mm.
So they're trying to have all the answers in that 45-minute conversation, which comes to your question, why do people do it? Because most newbies actually believe that their intelligence is what's going to sell the house or buy the house. You have the seller sell to you and you buy it.
Yeah.
They think it's intelligence that people want to deal. I never read that anywhere, Peter. I've never read that anywhere, that people like to do business with smart people. I've never heard that. But that's what we think. No, what people want to do business with is honest, nice people. And if they make mistakes, it's okay because they're honest and they're nice, they're polite. That's why in my book, Breaking the Real Estate Monopoly, I talk about being a customer service representative.
Right.
Asking them what's holding them back, asking them what their barriers are. And I'm going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. So and it's to your point earlier, which is why I didn't bring it up. So here's the magic. Just ask a question. That you should write this down. This is a total law, a natural law. It's an axiom. It's a maxium. It's any word you want to pick.
Yeah.
Just ask a question, get an answer, get a conclusion, and move on. Ask a question, get an answer, come to a conclusion, and then move on. Now, again, we could do a whole podcast just on this, but the answer isn't they responded. Like, Peter, how much do you want for your house? And you say,
I don't know. I've been thinking about it for a while. I have a couple ideas.
Yeah, so that is not an answer.
Yeah.
Or, Peter, how much are you asking for your house? Well, I owe 160. It's
Yeah.
not an answer.
All right.
The answer to the question is Peter, how much are you going to sell your house to me for?
Yeah.
Oh, I want 190. That's the answer. So you ask a question, get an answer to that question. Not an answer, get an answer to that question.
Yes.
Like a definitive bullseye.
Not just a
answer.
response. Not
No.
just a response.
Exactly.
Not just something coming back. The answer.
And this is important because if you get the answer to the four big questions, price, payment, duration, and deposit, if they talk about it, your conversation could literally be 10 minutes and you'll know exactly what to do.
Right. And when you say conclusion, question, answer, conclusion, I think you're meaning like something that you both agree on and okay, it's done. Like, okay, finished. Yes. Instead of, gee, like you say 190, go, I don't want to pay 190. Well, you're not done then, are you? It's not concluded. Concluded means finish. You're now concluding. So is that what you mean? Like you get an answer that's acceptable to both and you can move on because it's finito, right?
Yep. So let me ask you this question. I ask you, what's your price, Peter?
Yeah.
And you say 190.
Yeah.
Then I say to you, how much will you take for monthly payments? And what do you say?
1,500.
Okay. Or I don't want to take payments.
Oh, yeah, right.
Is that a conclusion?
Oh, hell no, if they don't answer it, no.
Why is that not a conclusion?
Because you didn't get an answer.
I did get an answer. You don't want to make payments. You don't want to take payments.
Okay, well, you have to find out what he does want or what he will do because he won't do that.
So, all right. So I'm confusing you. So I say to you, how much do you want? You say 190. I say, how much are the payments? Or how much should I make for payments?
Yeah.
Or how much can I make for payments?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm taking it out of context here, but
Okay.
you say, well, I don't want to take payments. That is a conclusion. It tells you what to do next.
Yeah, well, that's finished, but you need to go somewhere else now.
So now I would go back to price because the rule is you either want to get monthly payment, you want to get terms or a discount. So I would immediately go back and say, okay, so you want 190 all cash. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't do that. I need a discount if you want all cash.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is the four big ones guide you in what you need to do based on the responses. And what I'm saying is you ask a question, get an answer to that question, and then come to a conclusion. The conclusion is no. No's are good. Jim Camp wrote that. No's are the decisions. They thought about it, and it's no's are better than yeses.
Really? I wouldn't think that.
Because no's tell you what they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
People will tell you yes just to get you off the telephone and lie to you.
Oh, yeah. They won't make it. They won't say no unless they really mean it, huh?
Right.
They're not saying no to be polite because no.
Right. Okay. Number 5. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Number 5. You beg. God, I got to tell you, I cringe when I listen to my coaching clients. They just beg and beg and beg.
Please sell me your house, please.
And that, believe it or not, I know Ron LeGrand talks about begging, but I didn't get that. I mean, I heard him say it, but my idea of begging comes from Ben Settle, who's a copywriter. He's got I don't have the name of it right now. If you want to know, send me a support ticket, but he's got an incredible, it's like a charismatic book or something like that. It's this small book, but it is incredible. And one of the things he talks about in there is begging. Jim Camp talks about it in his book called No. It's in there too. Mm-hmm. So here's the point. Excuse me. If you're talking too much or teaching, you're begging.
You're trying too hard.
Beggars can also come across in your voice.
Oh, sure.
Like, do you sound confident?
Mm-hmm.
Do you reek of fear? And it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Do you sound like you're asking a favor.
Hmm.
Now, here's where I run into this the most, Peter. Especially with slot deals, the sandwich lease option transfers, where we're actually doing a rent to own from the seller, and then we're subleasing it to the buyer for a fee.
Yep.
Right. So here's where I hear this a lot: $800,000 $1 million houses.
Yeah.
Because most of our clients don't own an $800,000 house or $1 million house.
Mm-hmm.
So they go in and they put the seller on a pedestal and they beg. They're down on their knees, hands clapped together in front of their face, and they're pleading and begging for them to give them this $800,000 house and don't even know they're doing it. They put them on a pedestal. The only thing that can happen when you put somebody on a pedestal is they can look down on you. That's it.
It's almost funny.
Nothing
Not
else.
really.
I mean, I noticed this with a relationship with a girl once. It's like if you put and I'm going to get in trouble with this because I shouldn't be saying stuff like this, but here lies pretty women.
Mm-hmm.
They get everything they want because they're pretty, and they get put on pedestals, and us guys do it all the time.
Yep.
Okay. Your tone, the way you conduct yourself can easily be the difference between your success and your failure. That one thing can change all your life. Just your tone, being confident, being honest, opening up, being sincere, taking that social veneer off of you, that party personality, making everybody think that you're doing good when you're not. That pretendedness, that acting, that public relation face, like, oh, I'm good. I hate that. My daughter does that to me all the time. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
That's a cover up for, I just need you to stop talking about it. I don't want to confront this right now, Dad. I'm not good, and I don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So this one thing, just by being confident, and here's how you do that. You want to help that person. You know that you want to ask them questions. You know that whatever they say can't hurt you.
Hmm.
And if you're just sincere and honest and let karma do its job, you'll do a whole lot better. Make that one adjustment, and I promise you'll start making deals.
Yep.
Tell somebody, I'm new. I haven't done a deal yet. And I want to help you do your deal so I can learn. Can you help me learn how to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And people will say yes. You bought your condo that way.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, good. Number 6, feeling intimidated. This is a sign of low esteem on your part and likely fear of what others might say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to point out here. The last sentence. It's fear of what others might say.
Yeah.
That's why I said in number 2 about the scripts, do it enough until you're certain. Nobody is good at talking to sellers when they first start out. Nobody is.
Right. But your advice there to note down anything that is disturbing, I'm sure that helped me in the very beginning, because if you don't, you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 things pile up, and you'll forget what they were after a while. You just feel bad. Right. It gets very unspecific in your mind. It just becomes a generalized bad. But be very specific, write it down, and answer every little thing so that you don't have to worry about it, and you're done. Fix everything as you go and stay on top of it, or else you'll get buried by your own questions.
So all you need to do is every time you have a rebuttal or an objection or something you didn't know how to answer or you felt like it took you off script, write it down. And then later on a separate piece of paper, on a blank piece of paper, on the top of the piece of paper, just write down whatever the objection is. Or the stall or the resistance or whatever you want to call it, right? That caused you to come off script or caused you to not have an answer.
Yeah.
Then write down your answers of how you would persuasively answer that question. And persuasive is not like convince somebody. It's like get them to have a different viewpoint of what their viewpoint is. Like, I don't want to have payments. Well, how come? Like, what's bad about payments? Well, I did this once before and I got burned.
Oh,
right. That's like saying, I don't want to ride a bicycle. How come? Well, because when I was 5 years old, I fell off my bike and I broke my arm. Doesn't mean that all bicycles are bad. It just means that your experience with bicycle was bad.
Yeah.
So how is that happening with you, with me right now? And how is that happening with your seller when you're talking to them?
Sure.
Okay. Number seven, can't answer the question and just start making shit up.
You can't make stuff up. Come on.
More to the point of why we use scripts, because the scripts are mostly used for the responses of the questions we ask. So I don't need to write you a script on the questions. I need to write you scripts on the responses to those questions, right?
Yeah.
But much more basic, answer with a question. So when you ask a question, right? Don't make something up. Just ask another question to learn more about why they're asking that.
Yeah, that's a Ron LeGrand thing I caught from him recently. Answer questions with questions.
Right. Well, that's in Jim Camp's book.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't make it up. I mean, that's an obvious thing, but until you think it's obvious, you don't know. You don't use it. It's a great tool. It's not a trick either. Why someone's asking you a question? You need to know why they're asking that question.
Yeah, and what it does is it's up to the seller then to answer the questions, and it puts you in control.
It's like when you ask your wife, "What do you want to have for where do you want to eat tonight?" She goes, "I don't know. Where do you want to eat tonight?"
Yeah, my answer, because there are certain places I know she doesn't like to eat, so I pick the number one place that she hates.
Yeah, good, nice trick.
That's what I do.
Attaboy.
It's like when a seller says, "How much do you want for a house?" I don't know.
$1.
Oh, okay, so that means you'll take 10,000. On a 200,000. Oh no, I won't do that. Okay, so you do have some idea. Tell me what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's what I want you to do. And if you're listening to this recording, you should write this down. And you should rewind it, because I'm going to say it a couple times so you can write it down. If you don't have an answer to their question, here's what you say. I don't know, but if it's important to you, I'll get you the answer.
Yeah.
And that works beautifully. And then they know you're being honest.
Yeah.
So
that helped me so much in the beginning, because I think something you said made me think of it this way. Anybody, the president of a company, the chairman of the board, has a board, a bunch of guys. The president of the company has a bunch of executives, so he doesn't have to answer all the questions.
Right.
He asks like, "Hey, what do you think of this? What's your response?" And then he comes up with something. But it's okay to have professionals to go to.
I first heard this because of a book, because I read a lot of biographies, and I read a book on Henry Ford. I had for a very long time had a passion with Henry Ford.
Yeah.
I don't know what my problem was there, but I'm from the car business. I love cars, so it was a way for me to learn business and keep it related to cars, right?
Yeah.
But they said that you want to know what the smartest thing that Henry Ford ever did?
Yeah.
They said that it's a play on words, but the smartest thing that Henry Ford ever did was put a switch box on his desk of all the people he could talk to. So when somebody asked him a question he didn't know it, he could push a button and say, "Hey, John, I need you to come in here for a minute. I have a question for you." And John would come in, like legal or accounting or production or purchasing and he'd push the button and they'd come in and they would give him the answer, just what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's
it's
real
common.
life.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it again. And Johnny Cashflow says he's got his pen out. So John, I know you got your pen out, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to write it on your hand like you're cheating on a test in school. Okay.
Don't do that. Don't listen to Bill. Use a paper. Then put it in your computer and keep it. File it. Say it again. Stop fooling around.
He said, if you're watching, like that button. I don't know.
If you're watching, hit that like button.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Hit the like button. All right. So what's the question, Bill?
Thank you. So the question is, I don't know, But if it's important to you, I'll get you the answer.
So why do you say if it's important to you?
Because they may be just trying to sidetrack you and trying to get you off topic, and they're trying to divert you.
Yeah, they might say, no, it's not that important. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Number 8, the last one, and then we're going to bug out of here.
Yep.
And probably the most important. And I hate to rush through this because we're at an hour and 2 minutes, and I could do an entire podcast just on this.
Stay tuned next week.
No, I'm not going to do it.
All right.
I thought about breaking. I originally had 12 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I ran out of time on the podcast, so I only wrote 8. So maybe we'll see. You ready?
Yeah. 8.
Interrupting people in mid-sentences.
I'm going to try to interrupt you, but you finished too fast. Yeah, no.
This is distracting. Plus, think about it. A good, healthy acknowledgement stops someone from talking too much because they feel like you understood and you're tracking with their ideas. When you interrupt someone, that feeling of understanding gets hit like a locomotive, or like it get hit from a locomotive, and leaves bad mojo. They start thinking he doesn't understand me. He didn't get me. He's not tracking with me. He's not sympathetic with me. He doesn't get it. How could I sell this guy the house? He can't solve my problem. He misunderstood me.
He's not listening, for sure.
He's not listening.
He doesn't even know that I didn't finish talking, and he's talking. Well, isn't that you might have this in your notes there, but isn't that something that people do because they're thinking more about what they have to say and really are not listening? They're worried more about what they got to say, so they start talking instead of just calm down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a bonus.
Yeah.
Number 9, which is a bonus.
9, folks.
Leave the ums, ahs, you knows. And this one bothers the heck out of me because I hear this a lot. And I wrote this, I erased it, I wrote it, I did it 4 times.
What?
Because I know it's going to be a problem.
Which one?
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, God. When I hear people say that, you know what I'm saying? Is I get the feeling they have not been acknowledged and trying to get people to acknowledge and ask them for the acknowledgement. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you understand me? And, we don't talk about it in our scripts and all that because it's a communication technique and it's a different thing. But I've studied communication a lot. I'm not perfect, but I try. And acknowledging is important. Somebody says something like, hey, I like your hat. Like, look, kids are terrible at this. I'll text my kids, my granddaughter, something. They don't respond. Just say, thanks. Thanks, Grandpa. I like your hat. People stare at you and say, oh, thanks. It's not hard.
So when you ignore somebody on a communication, and you know this, Peter, it's the most invalidating thing that a human being could have is
being ignored.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Am I not here? Hello? Am I not here? You don't see me? I don't exist? Boy, I don't even exist to this person. That's terrible.
Right.
The people like to be acknowledged. I once had a conversation with a woman trying to hire me for guitar. She was right near me, stopped by the house, knocked on the door. She talked for 10 minutes. I stood there just like listening, and I thought, okay. And then she says, boy, you're a great conversationalist. And I got the job. I didn't say a word. I really said nothing. I just stood there staring at her, blah, 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 blah. And I went, okay. I got hired. So shut up and listen.
So go ahead, read what Johnny said.
Oh, I'm like that. I'm not good at converting what's in my head to someone else in a way that they might understand. Okay. Well, that's why God made the next minute to keep talking and keep trying. And you're not at a conclusion then, right, Bill?
That's right.
You're not at a conclusion. You might have to ask them some more questions so you know really what they're trying to find out. And then you could answer it if you really, really know what they need to know.
Do you know why somebody lies?
What do you say?
It's because they're afraid of what the other person might say, so they're telling them what they think they might want to hear.
Yeah, or they're afraid they're going to get in some kind of trouble.
So the truth of the matter is the thing that Johnny's talking about, what you're talking about, what I just talked about, a lie is confront. Can you confront it?
Yeah.
Confront means comfortably stand there and be there while it's happening.
You know, I knew a guy who's a salesperson, but he sold things that helped people. It wasn't just making money; he helped people, and it was very touchy stuff, like when you're trying to help people with problems. Okay, and I would watch him, and people would maybe just flinch, and then us cowards would just like try to go on and get through to the end, and he would go, "What happened?"
Yeah,
he would confront and face like, did I just say something upset you or something? Like, what happened? They go, well, blah, 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 blah. I go, oh, okay. And he would help them with that. He had the guts to just actually face what the person was being uncomfortable with and squirming or whatever that was. And he would dive in when you didn't have to and he'd go after it, not just have it thrown in his face. That took and he did really well. He's a great guy. I'm still in communication with him. Still helps lots of people.
Good. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Peter. We got to go. We're at 8 minutes over the podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully today this helped you a lot. Make sure you go into the description and click on the link because there are actually scripts and stuff in there based on what we're talking about.
Scripts.
Yes. And in-house inspections. You can get an in-house inspection there as well. So go check it out. And make sure you like us. Johnny Cashflow, thanks for reminding people to make sure you like us. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or whether you're in some podcast channel, just like us and make sure you subscribe. Okay. And if you have any final questions or personal thoughts you'd like to give to me, flippinghousesforrookies.com/support. Thanks again. See you on episode number 298.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.